12 cruisers and 15 destroyers. So their plan was now to wipe out the American soldiers that were ashore and the rest of the landing forces, because they were left virtually defenseless because Admiral Halsey took the bait. So what laid in between total defeat for the American Navy and the Army and Admiral Kurita's forces? Taffy 3. The plan would have worked except for this courageous group of men under the command of Admiral Ziggy Sprague. There were 6 Casablanca-class escort carriers. They only displaced 7,800 tons. They were 512 feet long. And on a good day, Ted tells me, going downhill, they could go about 18 knots. They only had about 900 officers and men, including the air group of 28 aircraft. And those were the big ships. We're talking about the other ships, 3 destroyers and 4 destroyer escorts. Some of the smallest ocean-going ships in the United States Navy at the time. So here we are, the morning of October 25th. Ted's being awakened by that sound. Now I turn it over to Ted to tell you what it was like to be aboard USS Cullinan Bay on that fateful morning.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you very much. Tony, thank you very much. That was a wonderful overview of the situation. Yeah, I got to start the program. So anyway, I'm going to go from there. As Tony pointed out so capably, far across the Pacific, 7,000 miles plus from San Francisco. That's a far piece. The Philippines and the vast, vast reaches of the Pacific. Tony also pointed out the problem with a 2-pronged command. And that was because Douglas MacArthur, and it's pretty well understood today, that Douglas MacArthur twisted Franklin Delano Roosevelt's arm with the gentle reminder, because MacArthur was such a hero. He probably said to the president, well, Mr. President, I've always loved politics. Roosevelt got the message. And that was one of the reasons for setting up the 2-pronged attack, with Admiral Chester Nimitz in the Western Pacific, MacArthur in the South Pacific, with the land forces. Okay. We've gone ashore, and as a matter of fact, our little task group called Taffy 3, people say, Taffy, what does that mean? Well, Taffy 3 and Taffy 2 and Taffy 1 were 3 separate units with the exact same makeup. The basis was 6 escort carriers, 4 destroyers and 3 destroyer escorts, or vice versa. And they made up a 13-ship task group. We were anti-submarine warfare ships. We were never intended to be in the face of the enemy. Never. Skin of our ship was 7/16 of an inch. That's less than a half an inch thick. The major warships had heavy armor, and the Japanese knew that. Fortunately, the Japanese intelligence was a little less than a full set of knives in your dinner setup. they didn't realize that our little ships were skinny, thin, and very, very soft. CVE is the Navy designation for that type of ship. CVE stands for Carrier Vessel Escort. Well, we had a name for it, and it was combustible, vulnerable, and expendable. Anyway, so here we are. We went through a typhoon getting to land, help land the troops. We almost sank in a typhoon. I've never experienced anything so scary in my life. I'm not bragging. It just happened. We were escorting LCIs, LSTs, LVPs, so forth. And in our little task group, escort group, when we finally came out of that typhoon an hour and a half later, which had blown the anemometer off the forward part of the foredeck of our carrier at 125 knots, there were something less than 50% of those little ships out in the open again. Those others all went down, all hands lost, never, never, never to be seen again. That was always, it got very boring because in anti-submarine warfare, we were back. We were not up the front lines like Tony pointed out with the great fast carriers, the Essex class, the Independence class. We were baby flat tops. We were also called Kaiser coffins, made by the Kaiser Company at Vancouver, Washington. Also, Jeep carriers. And you know, a Jeep is a very small machine. Well, that was the type of ship we were on. And of course, we thought, well, we'll be supporting the landings. Our planes will fly out, strafe the land forces of the enemy, come back, refuel, yawn, yawn. Boring. Well, things changed in a hurry that morning of the 25th of October. As Tony adequately pointed out, Admiral Kurita was the central force. That was the central part. And, well, look at that ship. Have you seen an uglier one? I don't think so. The island on it was very small. Compare that to a Hornet, like Don Brett, Ken Glass's ship, John Steele, flew torpedo bombers, 4 or 5 different Essex class carriers. Essex class was 3 times the size of this ship. That island on there, though, was powerful. That's where the radar was, that's where the con was, and that's where the central and the heartbeat of the ship